Aldermen, ladies and gentlemen, ask please to stand for the Mayor of the City of Clarence, Alderman Doug Chipman.
Thank you. Good evening. To open proceedings tonight, I call on the General Manager for the Council prayer.
Almighty God, we humbly beseech Thee to vouchsafe Thy blessing upon this Council, direct and prosper its deliberations to the advancement of Thy glory and the true welfare of the people of the City of Clarence. Amen.
Before proceeding, I'd like to acknowledge the Tasmanian Aboriginal community as the traditional custodians of the land on which we're meeting tonight, and pay respects to elders past and present, and remind everyone that the meeting is being audio-visually recorded and will be available on the Council's website later this week. Thank you. To declare the meeting open, note there are no apologies. Item 2, confirmation of minutes for 5th of September. A circulator be taken as ready to confirm. Second, Alderman Strong. Second, Alderman Hughes. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 3, Mayor's communication. General Manager's circulated urgent item of business. I would like to invite a procedural motion that be picked up as item 11.3.8 in the planning items. Thank you. I'll take Alderman Hume and second Alderman Farmer. Questions from the public without notice? There being none. No items. No deputations of item 8. No motion of notice. Item 10, reports from outside bodies. The Southern Tasmanian Council Authority. Pending.
Yes, Mr Mayor, the financials statements and the audit report is currently underway and will be presented shortly.
And Tasmanian Water Corporation, I'd like to table the annual report 2015-16. Reports from special committees and other representative bodies. Alderman Pierce.
Yes, table of the minutes, Mayor, at the Lindisfarne Community Activity Centre at the last meeting and the AGM.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. The Tracks and Trails Advisory Committee meeting on the 11th of August 2016 and the minutes of the special meeting that was convened at the Council Chambers on the 15th of September. It was interesting to note, Mr Mayor, that the committee decided to support the concept of staging the development of the Ralphs Bay Coastal Trail in 4 stages, and as part of the piecemeal approach to this, stage 1 from Lauderdale to private property boundary, stage 2 private property boundary to Mill Point, stage 3 Mill Point to the northern boundary of the Police Academy, and stage 4 the northern boundary of the Police Academy to Rokeby Village.
Any other reports? Item 11.1, that the information. Sure.
Certainly, if you'd like to table it, no problem.
So just pass it around so that people can actually have a look at it tonight?
Sure. Yeah. I guess in doing that, we accept that it's tabled.
Tabled?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And aldermen are free to look at it since it's tabled.
Thank you very much. And also, just so the aldermen are aware, we will actually be briefing, the committee will be briefing the Mayor in relation to that forum in Unley and also the International Federation of Ageing Conference in Brisbane. And we'll be doing that next week, and then we hope
For that CPAC report, Alderman Hume.
Mayor, I did recently forward the August Business East minutes, but I don't have them here for tabling, so forward them again.
Okay. Any final reports? Okay. Moving on to 11.1, that the information in the weekly briefing reports of the 5th, 12th and 19th of September be noted. Thank you, Alderman Thurley. Alderman Cusick, thank you. Any comments, questions in regarding to the weekly briefing reports? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. There are no petitions at item 11.2, so I now advise that Council intends to set as a planning authority under the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993. Item 11.3.1 is a development application at 141 Dillon Avenue, Lindisfarne, for addition to a dwelling. Thank you, Alderman Pearce. Do I have a seconder? Alderman Cusick, thank you. Speak.
Mayor, I went and had a look at this, and look, because the additions are on a house that's down, sloping down to the water, and I read the performance criteria and acceptable solutions. I think this is quite all right. I have no trouble with it whatsoever. So I support the recommendation.
I endorse Alderman Pearce's comments.
Thank you. Other speakers? Take it no need for right of reply. I'll put the motion, which is the officer's recommendation to approve. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 11.3.2 is a development application at 6A Leonard Street, Rose Bay, for a dwelling. Thank you, Alderman McFarlane. Seconder? Alderman Thurley, thank you. Alderman McFarlane?
For the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Would you like to speak?
No.
Other speakers? Put the motion then, which is for approval. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. 11.3.3 is a development application of 56 Esplanade, Lindisfarne, for demolition of existing dwelling and construction of 2 model dwellings. Thank you, Alderman Hume. Are you seconding it, Alderman?
I want to speak against it.
Thank you, Alderman Thurley. Alderman Hume, would you like to speak to the motion, please?
It's a very comprehensive report. There are a number of acceptable solutions that aren't met, and so the officers have had to have a very close look at the performance criteria. But I'll address other comments in my right of reply.
Thank you. Alderman Thurley.
I've looked through the report and I am quite satisfied with the officer's report in regard to this, and I think any issues have been adequately dealt with.
Mr Mayor, I spent about an hour and a half on Sunday yesterday at the Robinsons' home, and they are the property immediately adjacent to development. This particular development will in fact almost cover, with building footprint as you call it, about 90% of it, given there's only a small area of public open space. and there's limited area to actually have visitors to the site. The property that adjoins the development will in fact be 1.6 metres from the front boundary of the front boundary will be 1.6 metres back to the actual building proper. And in the officer's report, they go into detail in relation to this is in keeping with the buildings and the streetscape on Lindisfarne Esplanade. The problem with that is that there are only two buildings that are actually closer to the streetscape. The majority of them are set back and are in line with the existing building that's proposed to be demolished, and that's at 56 Esplanade, Lindisfarne. The sitting room that's actually in the corner in the northern point of the adjoining property at 57, given the development and the movement of the building closer to the streetscape, there's going to be no light whatsoever from a northerly aspect coming into the sitting room or the sewing room, which is a very small room at the front of number 57. Likewise, the bedroom, the laundry and the toilet on the northern side will be basically in shadow for most of the time, because this building is actually a extension and the roof line is basically continuous for Unit 1 and Unit 2, the multi-dwellings. So there's this amenity that actually is addressed under performance criteria of 10.4.2 on page 3, in which it does not meet the performance criteria because of the impact that it has on the amenity of the area. Similarly, the proposal does not meet the performance criteria of 10.4.2 A and 4 in that it will have unreasonable visual impacts caused by the scale and the bulk of the building. There is one positive in relation to this building, and that is that it's currently at the height of I think about 8 metres, and the proposal is for 6.5. But having said that, the 6.5 is actually a continuous structure from 1.6 at the front right back to almost 1.6 back from the boundary. So you've got this huge development of two units which in fact are almost continuous with their roof line along in a very important part of the Lindisfarne Esplanade, and it's basically has brought a lot of distress to the elderly couple at number 57 who did put in a representation regarding their concerns about this. I did prepare a motion for refusal. Just listening to my colleagues in relation to their comments in moving and seconding the motion, it seems as though that there isn't support for this. But I would say, Mr Mayor, that this is a discretionary development. People do have an opportunity to put in representations when they feel that their property is sort of under stress, in the sense that there's a development that's going to come in that's going to detract from their living style, their amenity. And I just don't feel comfortable that this development is appropriate in an area which has a very important, I think, visual impact on the streetscape and Lindisfarne Esplanade.
Alderman James, other speakers? Right, reply, Alderman here.
Yes, Mr Mayor. The issue of overshadowing, which was the representation received, pardon me, was actually addressed in the officer's report, and as I understand it, the shadow diagrams show that there was one window or one habitable room that was to be affected by overshadowing, and that overshadowing would occur on the shortest stay up until 10 a.m, which means that room would receive sunlight for most of the day. They have also addressed the issue in the report of visual impacts and actually explained that the proposed units, and I'm quoting from the report here, the bulk of proportions when reviewed from adjoining residential properties, the degree of encroachment would be significantly less than the encroachment associated with the existing two-storey dwelling. So I believe that those issues have been addressed in the report as far as performance criteria 3 in clause 10.4.2 is concerned, and I believe that it complies with the performance criteria.
Motion is the officer's recommendation, which is approval subject to conditions and advice. All those in favour? Against? Carried. 11.3.4 is a development application at 25 Street, Bridge Street, Richmond, for a change of use to visitor accommodation and general retail and hire and function centre. Thank you. Alderman Chong. Alderman McFarlane, I think. Thank you.
Just briefly, Mr Mayor, this was recently the Congregational Church, which has been given up as being used by a church in Richmond. It's a beautiful old building flat bang in the middle of the main street, and it's really good to see that something sensitive is being proposed for it rather than it being let go into disuse. So I think the officer's recommendation covers all the information, and I think it would be good to be supported.
Again, I feel similar to Alderman Chong that Richmond needs to renew itself when opportunities come along, and this is a good opportunity to do that.
Other speakers? No need for right reply. Motion is the officer's recommendation for approval, subject to conditions and advice. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. 11.3.5 is a development application at 65 Rywena Road, Montague Bay, for 3 multiple dwellings, 1 existing and 2 new. Thank you, Alderman Thurley. Alderman Walker, thank you. Alderman Thurley, would you like to speak to the motion?
Other than to say that I support the officer's recommendation, and this is probably typical of what's going to happen throughout suburbs such as Montague Bay, and it is good utilisation of what are reasonably good sized blocks, and in this day and age it's all about getting greater development within close lying suburbs, and there's already great transport and so forth there, so I support this application.
Yes, noting the comments of Alderman Thurley and comments through there by the officers, I'd add to those things that if there is going to be an increase in density, that it's better to be occurring in places where there's pretty reasonable infrastructure. There certainly is as far as services go. Proximity to work, be it in a expanding and busier Rosny, or be it towards the CBD components that make sites like these chosen. I think concerns raised around cycling and that probably not reasons to vote against such a thing. So seek support.
Thanks.
I'd like to ask a question of Mr Lovell and then speak, so that at least we know that I'll ask the question and then...
And all within the 3 minutes.
Yeah, and talk within the 3 minutes. I just thought I'd better get that clear, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. On page 121, Mr Lovell, under Parking and Access Code, it says under the proposed 2 spaces for existing dwelling and 4 spaces for the 2 additional dwellings are proposed. A visitor space is not provided. Now this is the car parking code, and under performance criteria it's saying it's consistent with the number of spaces provided for multiple dwellings, where experience indicated this was an adequate number to meet demand. Could you explain to me why, on the one hand, the parking code says it needs to be a visitor parking, and then on the other hand, it doesn't? Please?
Yeah, I think what we're getting at is, although it doesn't apply with the code over the current scheme, variation has been requested, and our view is then that what's been proposed is actually consistent with what was provided under the council's previous scheme, and that's proved adequate. It's the basis for our recommendation.
Yes, supplementary on that. I thought, Mr Mayor, that we have a new scheme. And we've worked within the new scheme. So it surprises me, Mr Mayor, that we are now talking about the previous scheme, which was adequate. I just find that a little bit sort of contradictory in a sense, because are we dealing with the new scheme, or are we still having little bits and pieces of the old scheme and throwing in for good measure?
I take it that's a rhetorical question, Alderman Jones?
Well, it is, and
Because-
the question is, are we going to use the previous planning scheme as a means to determine if we need a visitor parking spot or not?
Yeah, let me hear what we would say, but it's, their view is that developed at the regional level. It's not a state code at this point. And in exercising discretion, council can consider what is an appropriate number in the area, and we considered that based on the nature of that locality, that the provisions of the previous scheme had proven adequate in the past. The code in the previous scheme.
In other words, it became a basis for judgment as opposed to application of the old scheme.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Hume.
Just on the matter of car parking, I think one of the things that needs to be understood is we have an acceptable solution that says that on top of the 2 spaces per unit, a visitor space needs to be provided. Now, as with anything else in the scheme, any other clause in the scheme, there's the acceptable solution and then the performance criteria. If you're not going to look at the question of what sort of demand is adequate, then why would you have a car parking demand in those performance criteria? And I think what also needs to be pointed out is that when the development doesn't meet the acceptable solution, the performance criteria actually has a number of clauses, A through to L, and to be able to provide a development that doesn't meet that acceptable solution, you have to tick every single one of those 12 boxes for that development to pass. So, it may seem like to a casual observer that not insisting on the acceptable solution, we're not being that rigid in terms of this development, but 12 performance criteria, that's a lot of hoops to jump through to be able to satisfy that visitor space doesn't need to be provided.
Other speakers? Right, a reply, Alderman Turley.
Just addressing the main point of contention that's been brought up in relation to the parking, the area has on-street parking, and that is quite not a highly populated area, not heavily utilised, so one would assume that on-street parking is going to provide quite adequately in this particular case. So I support the recommendation.
Thank you. So the recommendation before the Chair is actually the officer's recommendation for approval subject to conditions and advice. All those in favour? Against? Carried. 11.3.6 is an amendment application, the introduction of a Belrive Bluff specific area plan. Alderman McFarlane.
My pleasure, Mr Mayor. Would you like me to speak now or later?
Do we have a seconder, please?
Alderman Thurley.
I look forward to this going out on consultation, and I look forward to the end result, which I'm hoping for us will be and see a specific area plan reintroduced over Bell Reef, in consideration of the fact that a large number of people in our communities do consider character and amenity of high importance to their living standards, their quality of life and their marketability. I fail to understand why there is any discussion around the table that this is a test case, because really, for me, initially when the regional planning scheme was brought in, the Minister did say that councils could have some ability to reintroduce local area plans or specific area plans. So I'm hoping that this will show that there are councils that consider special areas of significance and are prepared to put up a good case. And I'm particularly keen to acknowledge the work of Lee Woolley over the years for this council in regards to our landscape and character of our council.
I would just like to reiterate what Alderman McFarlane has said, and also congratulate Alderman McFarlane on actually driving this forward. It's a special passion of Alderman McFarlane's, and it's been wonderful that this has come to fruition. When you think of Bell Reef Bluff to the Eastern Shore, it is the jewel in the crown. It needs to be protected for all of the things that it represents that are so special. And the beautiful thing about this is that it may well prove a test case. It is so well put together that I doubt that the state government can actually ignore this, and I'm hoping that this will set a precedent for specific areas such as those that are indicative of great history and great pride in our community.
Other speakers. Alderman James.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There's been a lot of assistance from around the table to drive this, and it hasn't been an easy task at all. In fact, there's a number of us that have been pushing this, and the credit should be given to that slight majority that actually got it over the line when it was brought in this chamber in the first instance. That needs to be said, because it was only 1 or 2 votes in it, Mr Mayor, that actually triggered, I may be wrong, but it actually triggered this particular matter to go ahead. The fact of the matter is that I think Alderman Pears may have just come on council back in the late 80s when we pushed this proposal with Lee Woolley for the Bell Reef Bluff Special Area Plan. And we stood by that plan through thick and thin, Mr Mayor, and as a result, back in the early 90s, basically the Special Area Plan got up and running. So that has been the basis, I believe, of why a group of us decided to push this matter and try to give it some legs to get to the to the TPC, which ultimately it will go to, in order to be able to enhance and protect some of those beautiful characteristics that in fact are part and parcel of the Bell Reef Bluff. And it's a wonderful area. It is absolutely important, and I've said in this place on a number of occasions it's on a par with the Glebe, and also probably running third to the Battery Point. Okay, it's a long, but nevertheless, you know, we are up there, in my view, in that particular category. So let's see what happens. It's not going to be an easy task to get this through the TPC. I disagree with Alderman Thurley. This whole question of changes to the interim planning scheme and to what may come out of it, maybe there is a light at the end of the tunnel, but it's not going to be easy. Not going to be easy at all. And I just hope that the persons that sit at the TPC, and hopefully there may be some local residents that have or have a great affinity for the Bellerive area to give it that support in relation to getting this over the line. So it's been a lot of hard work from a number of aldermen on this council, not one or two, but a number of councillors on this council. And I believe, Mr Mayor, that the light may be at the end of the tunnel, and that at this stage, if we can tick it off and send it through the processes, then we may be rewarded at our endeavours.
But look, just for the record, I've just had a look at the minutes of that meeting back on the 20th of April. It was carried unanimously. I'd like to record that while all the aldermen in this council were strongly behind this motion, I'd agree that it was Alderman McFarlane's passion that brought it to the table in the first place, and she moved the motion. Any other speakers?
Yes, so, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to congratulate Alderman McFarlane for driving this. Congratulate Lee Woolley on his report. It is an excellent report. I must say that I am quite concerned by the fact that with the development of the Tasmanian planning scheme, we have very little certainty as to what degree we're going to be able to introduce and exercise local controls. And this is a demonstration of where local controls are so important. Now, if the TPC can't accept this submission, if they can't accept these local controls, then I must say I don't think we have much hope for any others that we wish to introduce in the future.
Yes, sorry. Thank you, Your Worship. I also scanned back to look at the minutes of the meeting of the 20th of April 2015, where it notes it was carried unanimously. That's not my recollection. My recollection is that I indeed voted against it, and I voted against it on the grounds that in a year of tight budgeting, we were looking at a significant quantum of funds to undertake the report. So I don't think it was unanimous. I think it was a pretty comfortable majority, but I don't think it was unanimous. Anyway, maybe I'm just engaging in some historical revisionism, which, why wouldn't I?
The minutes have been accepted.
So they are. So that is what happened. It was. Yeah. We were always fighting Eurasia. It's always been the enemy. Anyway, any other 1984 quotes we want to make? Go for it. Look, I think for the cost, the report that's been done is robust. And I think it's setting a good thing to go forward. For that money to have been spent and for the report to be delivered as it has, for me to oppose it would be churlish. I wish it well. I'm not sure what hope it has, but I wish it well. And I do actually think that if it is successful, it won't create that much of an embuggerance for development on Bellerive Bluff. In fact, quite the contrary. If it firms things up, if there's a degree of certainty around going forward, it might actually give people more comfort about what can and can't occur there. So I will be supporting this motion, even though, well, apparently I supported it last time according to the minutes as well. Anyway, there you go.
The other speakers. Alderman Cusick.
Yeah, I support this motion. I think it's very important that we have a crash getting this through. The Bellerive Bluff precinct and probably the other precincts within the city of Clarence are important local area precincts, but it's important to run this legislation.
Got a reply, Alderman McFarlane?
Thank you, everybody. I think that everybody around this table is very aware of the local community's feelings about Bellerive Bluff. For me, I don't feel that a special area plan is any different to us asking for what we had there in the first place that they took off without even asking us. So in the past and here in the future, we are being consistent and clear in reinforcing what we believe are the community's beliefs and values. And I think that regardless of what the Commission may have as a brief regarding the regional planning scheme, fundamentally we were given an ability initially to consider special areas. This is a special area that I fail to understand how the state government could argue that it wasn't. maybe if we brought back horse and carts might make it just a little bit more, historic for some of them. But they must have in their thinking an awareness of how this is important to us. The Seafarers Festival and the historicness of Bellary go hand in hand. I feel that we are leading the way in preserving heritage values, cultural values, and our own community's belief that they want this area protected. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. So the motion is that we adopt the framework study and initiate a draft amendment. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. 11.3.7 is the Richmond Townscape Study Review. Thank you, Alderman Chong. Seconder? Thank you, Alderman von Berto. Alderman Chong.
Thank you. One of the things that keeps Richmond as a prime tourist area is the look and feel of it, and this townscape study was designed originally and continues to be a way of ensuring that consistent colours and consistent materials are used to help keep that going. Obviously those change over time, and this update is just a way of making sure that we have the most up-to-date sources available.
Berto? Thank you. The other speakers? No need for right of reply? The officer's recommendation that we adopt the revised material schedule. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Now we have the matter of urgency, which is 11.3.8. Urgent business item concerning the Clarence Interim Planning Scheme, Kangaroo Bay, urgent amendment. Alderman Chong, thank you. Seconded, I think Alderman Hume just made it. Alderman Chong.
Thank you. Look, essentially when I read this, I proposed the item because looking at the Kangaroo Bay plan and the strategic intent of the plan, a hotel is always envisaged on that site, whatever else comes and goes with it. Now, I certainly found it complicated when I looked at the amendment, and it took me a little while and a number of questions to get my head around what exactly it does mean. And with your understanding, I'll go through what I understand the proposal to mean, and then please, if there are any misspeakings, I would hope that Mr Lovell would correct me. So firstly, my understanding is that the development of the car park is prohibited in section B. So if you have your nice little coloured maps, section B is where the yacht club is at the moment, and currently a car park is prohibited unless it's associated with the Bellary Yacht Club, because it's prohibited except in the marina. Now, the original information that we were given with regards to the proposed development on site C actually had parking, which is called the wharf area, actually had parking included in there. But my understanding is the reason that's changed is the TAFE College, Training College, whatever its official title is now consuming the area that would have been a car park in the first place. So there's a necessity to find car parking somewhere else, because whilst the car parking would be discretionary in that zone, that space is now taken up. In order to allow parking in the marina area for the hotel and for the public, I think it's important to note that it's not only for the hotel. The two amendments that are listed in the paperwork are needed. So the first one, which talks about deleting except in the marina and adding the association with the hotel industry, actually allows parking associated with a hotel in that area. The second one, which talks about deleting except in the marina under the big parking, actually allows public use of a car park that's built in that area. I think the other thing that is important to mention is what this does not do is give development approval for a car park of any sort, whether it's just tarmac on the ground or a multi-storey one. This does not actually give approval for that. What it does do is allow us to consider it. So at the moment, if a development application was lodged to council for that site, including a car park on the marina site, we would have to reject it because it would be non-conforming. So the only way that we can even consider that and do any consultation on it is actually to put this amendment through to give the capacity for a car park there. So on those bases, I support the lodging of the amendment and hope the TPC supports them too.
Explained it very well. I'm not sure there's anything I can really add to that, except to say that it makes sense that a car park servicing this development be located near the development.
I think it's important to support this change in order to ensure optimum utilisation of Kangaroo Bay precinct. As it is, it's currently restricted to use as a marina car park, and I think precinct parking, apart from Belrive Yacht Club parking, will probably be a very important component of any future development of Kangaroo Bay.
Mayor, I feel uncomfortable about this. I guess primarily the reason that I feel uncomfortable is that it's actually an urgent amendment process. I understand why it's an urgent amendment process. However, the concern that I have is that actually under section 301A of LUPA, there's no public consultation. It's only public notification. And for me, that is a concern. It actually says, the pages are not numbered, but in the hard copy report that we were provided with, on the third page at 2.2, it says the urgent amendment process is confined to amendments that can demonstrate that the public interest will not be prejudiced. For this reason, public exhibition of urgent amendments is not required. However, if approved, public notification will be required as prescribed under section 301AF of LUPA. I think it's a very interesting concept that it's been determined that the public interest will not be prejudiced. So for that reason I have concerns. The other reason, and it follows on from that, is that whilst we actually have a letter of support from the Coordinator General, Mr Perry, we don't have anything in writing from the Belrive Yacht Club expressing its support for the change of use. And because we actually can't, with the urgent amendment process, provide public consultation, then I feel uncomfortable that we don't actually know in writing what the Belrive Yacht Club feels, believes, wants, etc. So to me they're a really important stakeholder, so I don't feel particularly comfortable with this process. I understand why we are being asked to look at it, but I don't feel comfortable.
Other speakers? Alderman Arnold.
A clarification for Mr Lovell. In light of Alderman Warburton's comments, is this not similar to the amendment we've just supported for the Bluff, in the context that this is a request for an amendment, for us to consider this amendment, and then if we approve it, it goes out on consultation?
Mr Lovell?
It is similar to the previous amendment. Previous amendment is a conventional amendment process where the legislature will be notified. This process takes place here does not go through the initial approach. It goes straight to the TPC, process it, determine whether to do it, and if they approve it, if the minister support, then the notification will be given at the conclusion. That's not a consultation process. I think the balance here is that what's been proposed is a discretion and process at the end.
Yeah, sure, you still have the floor.
One more question then. Is this amendment going to apply to land used by the Bellevue Yacht Club?
Yes, it is. It's the issue.
All right, any other speakers, please? Alderman Thurley.
From my perspective, because I haven't been here prior to 2014, I understand that this has been brought about because of an error that occurred previously, and that this is correcting an anomaly that has been highlighted as a result of the current context. So I don't see that it needs to be regarded as something that has any other implication other than to correct what has been revealed as an error back in the conversion of the Kangaroo development plan. So to indicate that it would actually be something that's being rushed through for wrong reasons is, to me, throwing the wrong light on it, because it's just been highlighted that this is an anomaly that has arisen and it needs correcting. And it needs correcting simply because there is so much perhaps at stake. So it would be rather, I think, rather cavalier. I think it would be a retrograde step to actually throw any other light on it, other than the fact that it is an anomaly that needs correcting and needs correcting now, and everything's in place for that to happen. I don't think it needs to be held up.
Any other speakers? Alderman Walker.
Yes, look, I've read over it, and it's no secret I don't like making decisions on the fly and under pressure. There's an element of that with this. It is by accident and not by design, and whilst I might not share Alderman Von Berto's level of discomfort, I do have some elements of discomfort around it. But I think when I weigh it all up, that in the situation we're in, that this is the right thing to do, and I will be supporting.
Other speakers? Right of reply, Alderman Chong.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just before I do that, if I, a question to you, if I may. My understanding is...
this is actually part of your...
Okay.
Proceed to the rhetorical question to you.
It's a rhetorical question because am I correct in my understanding that although we don't have anything written from the Bellevue Yacht Club, they are actually supportive verbally, although we don't have anything in writing?
General Manager.
If that doesn't make sense.
I can't really entertain this.
Okay, all right. So my understanding through discussions I've had is that Bellevue Yacht Club is actually in support of this, although they have not yet provided anything in writing. Let's try it that way. I mean, I do understand the uncomfortableness, if you like, that Alderman Von Berto expressed, because anything that we do in a hurry like this and we don't have the capacity to go out to consultation can be disquieting. I guess for me, this is essentially a car park at the moment. It's not actually a car park, but we all treat it like a car park. At the moment, we all treat it like a car park, even though we're not strictly allowed to, because it's not land that we're allowed to park on. But We have events there, people have events there. They pretend it's a car park anyway. And I think what we're doing effectively is, by putting this amendment through, accepting the fact that the land that is commonly used as a car park should actually be zoned properly as a car park and should be able to be used for ancillary activities in the area. Seek everyone's support.
The motion before the Chair is as circulated as an urgent item. All those in favour? Against? Carried. That concludes our business as a planning authority. There's nothing under customer service, asset management or financial. I think the General Manager had something to table under financial management.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I'm pleased to be able to table the audit certificates and the audited financial statements for the year 15-16. These were signed off by the Auditor General on the 20th of September. I think once again we got a very clean audit. There are no matters of note raised by the auditors through their undertaking of the audit, and in fact when the Deputy Auditor General addressed the Audit Committee last week, he complimented Council on the nature of the accounts. So I'm delighted to be able to table them, Mr Mayor.
Thanks very much, General Manager, and we note your report, and thank you for that. Item 11.7.1 under governance is that Council reviews the gifts and benefits policy update. Thank you, Alderman James. Seconder?
I'll second it.
Alderman Von Berto. Alderman James.
Let's take it to the next step, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Von Berto.
Just to note, Mr Mayor, that we're looking at that 12-month period to actually bed down the code. So that makes sense to me.
Other speakers? So the recommendation is we note the advice and adopt the revised gifts and benefits policy. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. 11.7.2 is concerns a right-of-way easement at 7 Mile Beach. Thank you, Alderman James.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'll wait for a seconder. Oh, we got one?
Now I take Alderman Chong was first on her feet.
Oh, 7 Mile Beach.
I know that. That's why I'm going to be very brief, Alderman Von Berto, and let you sort of follow on.
Oh.
But what I would like to say, Mr Mayor, is that I did pose a question to Mr Paul on Friday, and he actually demonstrated on the whiteboard that where the change in the route, etc. was going, and I thought that was explained quite well. So, suggested
Thank you.
the matter be approved by council.
We do know we have to be careful what's on whiteboards though.
Not at all, not now, Mr Mayor. We've passed that stuff. I think that was a Labor government at the time. Labor government.
Alderman Chong.
It's good to see the next stage in the airport extension going ahead.
The Alderman from 7 Mile Beach, would you like to speak?
One up special treatment.
Any other speakers?
Why not?
No need for a right of reply, Alderman James. I'll put the motion then that we agree to the release. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. 11.7.3 is to establish the committee for the annual review of the General Manager. Just by way of background, there are two positions to fill here under our new policy. The first is we appoint an alderman for 2 years, and so that we sustain continuity. The second point is that we appoint either Alderman Cusick or Thurley for 1 year. So can I first of all call for an alderman to be appointed to the committee for 2 years, please?
I'd like to nominate Alderman Von Berto.
Thank you. Do we have any other nominations? No, you don't need a second. Are there any other nominations?
Is that just for the first position?
Yeah. In the absence, Alderman Von Berto, are you happy to be on that committee? In the absence of any other nominations, I'll declare you elected for 2 years. Thank you. I'll now call at item 2 for either Alderman Cusick or Thurley to be nominated for 1 year.
I nominate Alderman Chiswick.
Thank you. Alderman Cusick, are you happy to accept? In the absence of no other possible nominations.
I was going to my feet and first of all seek whether my colleague is happy to accept Alderman Holm on the basis that he hasn't had a chance to actually be on the GM's review board as yet. And
Look,
therefore,
Alderman James, I'm sorry, but you are out of order of what is on the chair, before the chair at the moment for decision. I'm sorry. The recommendation is that either Alderman Cusick or Thurley be appointed for 1 year. We did have the option under item 1 to have had another nomination as an alternative to Alderman Bomberto, but there was no other nomination, therefore I declared her elected unopposed. Now we have a nomination for Alderman Cusick to be nominated for 1 year. And in the absence of no other possible nominations, I have to declare that he is elected for 1 year. Thank you. Item 11.7.4, a council representative appointment as a proxy for the Copying Refuse Disposal Site Joint Authority. Yes. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? First of all, ask Alderman Walker if he's prepared to stand. Alderman Thurley, are you prepared to stand?
Yes,
In that case, we need to conduct a ballot. So if I could ask Alderman Thurley and Walker to leave the room so that we could conduct this ballot, please. General Manager? Yeah, procedural?
Yes, so I just think, because this is a very important thing, Coppers Refuge disposal site, is there any reason why we would only have one proxy? Now, I understand if you have two proxies, I understand there's virtually no work with the second proxy. Both are trained to do it, and which is very, very rare. Can you have two proxies? I've got no idea if it would work or whatever. So.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the general principle is that you only appoint one. Yeah, the rules only provide for one. Now, having said that, I don't know that the rules don't provide for two, in the sense that, yes, they provide for one, but our usual running course of events is that you only appoint one. To appoint two could potentially be done. We don't check the rules, but the reality is there would be nothing for that second person to do, I don't believe so.
Well, I mean, ultimately it's a decision of this council, and we have guidance there, we have convention. Not sure how we move from here.
move as we've done on previous occasions, and that is have one proxy, and that is decided by ballot.
Well, I think given that's the convention, we should go ahead with that, unless with the leave of the meeting. Thank you. I appreciate your comment there, Richard.
So elegant.
Is that being recorded? One or a tick?
Yes, one.
Okay.
You don't end up with 10 to worry about the ballot box. Like 3 days before and do it. I swear.
Declare Alderman Walker has been elected as the proxy for the Cropping Waste Refuse Disposal Site, Joint Authority. Congratulations, Alderman Walker. Item 12, there are no matters on notice. Are there any questions without notice under Alderman's question time? Since Alderman Bonberto's... Alderman James, we'll start with you.
Mr Mayor, I have two questions. The first one is, in last week's Mercury newspaper, you made a comment that a super council may incorporate Clarence, Sorell, Tasman and Spring Bay. Morgan Spring Bay, thanks. I'm unsure as why you made that comment when you suggested to us that no comment should be made until the SGS committee has finalised its report in relation to their report that's currently underway.
Well, it is public knowledge that the four councils are considering, and one of the possible outcomes is that they may. I was responding to information that's already on the public domain.
Second question I have is that at a previous meeting I asked regarding the timing of the presentation of the Lauderdale structure plan, and was advised that apparently further information was required. Did that go back to the appropriate consultant for clarification, or did it go back for a rewrite of a number of chapters?
Yes, absolutely. It went back to the consultant just for clarification and some further information and support in respect of some of the matters in there that we felt were deficient. It was listed for hearing at a workshop last Monday night, which was unable to proceed because due to illness of the consultant, and it will be, I think, next Monday night. Yeah, the 3rd of October. Yeah, thank you.
Walker.
Yes, look, previously the matter of a dog park has been raised in as far as, whilst there is South Street looking at specific dog infrastructure for activity, sites were potentially shortlisted and discussed with council, and no result was taken. Just wondering if we can have a refresh on that matter to re-look at potentially getting some of that equipment somewhere. The answer is yes, we can, and I'll ask Mr Tui to bring that forward in the not too distant future.
Thank you.
As a result of mentioning vandalism, it's been highlighted to me that Simmons Park is being subjected to a little bit of vandalism. There's been some activity there that's resulted in residents calling the police. I just wondered if there's any opportunity or to install some lighting that may deter that sort of behaviour, considering the amount of money that's been poured into that area. It needs some sort of deterrent.
Mr Brown?
I'll send an alderman's request.
Okay, if we can have a response as a general briefing in the weekly briefing report. Thank you. Alderman McFarlane.
I have two questions and a big thank you. One gentleman has emailed me, I don't know, about 3 weeks ago, which I forwarded regarding roadworks in front of his house, and when I went to check just 8 days later it was fixed.
And the question is, Alderman McFarlane?
No, I said it was a thank you.
Thank you
The questions are, could we advise state government that they really need to do some work on bulrushes in their creeks, particularly on the turn-off coming into Cambridge? I know I've got the wrong place. Mornington. There are bulrushes at what I consider to be the head of the creek.
Yeah.
The second thing with another creek and pollution is the Clarendon Vale Creek, Clarence Plains rivulet, which has had car bodies dumped in it, and I know it's not on our land, but how they ever got there I don't know, don't want to know, but I'd like to see them pulled out, even if they're just piled up on the side.
We'll
because they're
investigate.
polluting the creek.
Thank you. If you could provide the details of exactly whereabouts they are. Thank you. Thank you. Alderman Chong.
Almost follows on from that. So my question is, are Aldermen aware that there is a Clarence Spring Squeeze on Saturday the 15th of October, so in Clouderdale and Berkeley? We're not doing the car bodies because the landowners are in the process of cleaning those up after extensive consultation with council. Should anybody like to sign up, they can do so on the Clean Up Australia site.
Very tricky question,
Yeah,
actually,
this is what
Alderman
was
Chong. Alderman Hume.
Another question.
You told me that.
Alderman Cusick. Alderman Dowse.
As usual, the Mornington roundabout is down next to Weeds, and it will be. And I was wondering, is there any way we can get the contracts, not only for the state government roundabout and all those areas, but also for the Tasman Highway from the federal government, right through from the airport through the CBD? Because I think the Hobart City Council, I was talking to some of the councils there, and they've got the contract for the highway. I mean, you know, it makes our place look a mess.
Dowse.
Agree, Mr Mayor, that whilst they are federally funded roads, they are actually roads that are under the control of the state government, and the state government has currently contracts in place with Stornoway that specify the level of maintenance, etc. When that contract next comes up for renewal, which I'm not sure when it is at the moment, but when it does next come up for renewal, council, if they so chose or desired, could actually tender for that work or reach agreement with the government to undertake the work like Hobart City Council has and Brighton Council has.
Alderman Pearce.
Thank you, Mayor. I did ask the General Manager this question this morning, but I'll ask you as well. We're waiting on the Cambridge Master Plan. How long do we have to wait for the Education Department? And I asked the General Manager that question, but I did say to people I would be asking that question tonight because they apparently want to see it on tape. They want to know how long do they have to wait.
Thank you, Alderman Pearce.
Ron Smile. Following your discussion today, I have spoken to Todd Williams, who's the manager of assets at the Department of Education. He confirms that their response has gone through the department and a letter is issuing to us within the next couple of days. We should have a response by the end of the week, which means if we get that, I suspect it'll probably be coming to a council workshop tonight fortnight.
Second question, Mayor. The pathway, they've done a great job, the pathway outside Rose Bay High, and I mentioned that footpath is state government. I'm not 100% sure, because all of a sudden the path finishes and it's full of weeds, but I did see our vehicle and our workmen up there, and I just thought that was a state government footpath, not ours. Can I get some advice on that?
Previously, we're in negotiations with the DSG at the moment, and the roads include that. We want to hand over the entire road reservation edge, from the edge of the road through the entire path. Mr. Stevens and I are definitely objecting to maintenance work, trying to get purely to the path alone, and we're in negotiations. Just the path alone? Yeah, that's good. That's good. We'll advise on further those negotiations. Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Bomberto. Okay.
Yes, Mayor, sorry.
Sort of a question, even though you skipped over me. Is that all right if I...
Well, yeah, there's no need to stick with the convention. Each alderman is entitled to 2 questions.
It only just occurred to me, I remember that a number of meetings ago, there was a question asked about whether we could do a study, account of the traffic coming through, I think it was Gordon's Hill Road, and Alderman Cusick asked this question before and after the ramps at Gania Street, before and after the ramps at Tasman Highway and East Derwent Highway were installed, to see if that has any impact on the traffic taking that shortcut through there. So I'm interested to know, has that count been done post construction and what's the impact?
Graham?
Drew, yeah, we'll be undertaking that shortly. We wanted the road to be open for a number of months and the traffic settled before we actually end it.
Right, that brings us to item 13, the closed meeting. Could I have a nomination? Thank you, Alderman Chong. Second, Alderman Fears. All those in favour?